All right, I'm Tyler, and this is your quick overview to the race and space offense. We are going rapid fire, and this is everything you need to know to decide if you want to go deeper into our principle-based conceptual offense that we call the race and space. So we break this up into 10 layers, and for each layers we go very, very deep on some new knowledge and objectives, obviously some new language so you can communicate with your program about it, and then finally application, because the magic's in the application. What do you teach? How do you teach it? How do you train it? And how do you measure it? That's all application. So let's dive in. Layer number one is race the arcs. This is our layer where we get better in transition. Across the board, high level, low level, mid level, any level, teams that play more in transition score more points. And even teams that are more of a half-court team, they have a higher points per possession when they play in transition. So without getting better players, without getting a better system, without getting lucky and making more shots, the easiest, simplest, and most direct thing that you can do to score more points is to get more possessions in transition. So we teach you exactly how with racing the arcs. Every transition is a race. If each individual beats their competitor in their race between the arcs, you're going to get out and transition a little bit more. We obviously do some really cool stuff with roles and our language, with our rackers and our dragons and our locks and our rabbits to give players accountability. Because with high clarity comes high performance. If you don't have high clarity on exactly what each player is supposed to do in transition, not a generic run the floor, then of course you can't expect to have great results. And lastly, how we train and apply it. We have all sorts of creative games and drills in our 4-quarter practice planning that help you emphasize transitioning quickly, not just the moment that the ball changes ends, but every transition from closeout to attack, from hunt to kick, from kick to swing, from action to advantage. We focus on this in racing all the time. Layer number two, space and hunt. We space the floor. We want to keep the rim, what we call the world and the paint. We want to keep that open as much as possible. We don't want strong side posts there all the time. We don't want players cutting there all the time. We don't want a bunch of action happening there all the time. We don't want players standing close to the basket when they're not wide open, because we want to hunt that space with the dribble. That is more advantageous for foul calls. That tends to draw more help than anything else on the defense and create more advantage catches elsewhere. That's layer number two. Layer number three, we call it shots and reads. And this is about improving your shot selection, getting extremely high clarity on what shots you get and who's allowed to take them, what reads you're trying to get better at, and who's allowed to make them. When you have high clarity, that is when you'll have a high efficiency offense. Next, layer four is the advantage game. Most coaches and programs get it backwards. They focus all of their time and attention on their disadvantage game. When they don't have an advantage, they have to run actions and sets and plays and continuity or whatever it is that you do on your offense. Well, that's not the magic. The magic is once you create the advantage out of transition, out of an action, out of a one-on-one breakdown, whatever, a defensive mistake, once you create the advantage, can your players read, execute, and punish that advantage? If not, there's no point in running an offense because you don't know what to do with your advantages. So the advantage game comes before anything else. You need to get your players better at playing in advantage situations. See, racing the arcs and everything else we'll do. Once we understand advantages and how we're actually able to punish and kill advantages, we go to layer five, which is our actions. Actions instead of plays. Here's the biggest difference. And the language is intentional, as you're seeing on all of these things. A play is for a shot. All 5 players do a thing to ensure we have good spacing and we get a shot. Action is for an advantage. If we run an action, we get an advantage catch. It doesn't mean I have to shoot it. I might, because I've already learned how to play with advantages, I might then +1 that advantage to turn a good shot into a great shot, which is something we say as coaches, but we don't actually teach how to do it. Actions are for advantages. And I'll give you one more bonus for the actions. We run 3 and 2 player actions, not 5 player actions. That allows for infinite number of variations to our actions, as any 2 combinations can create a whole family of additional actions. It really allows you to create your best player in their best situation, their best action with their best partner all over the floor in a lot of creative ways. Okay, layer 6 is zone actions. We don't run a different offense for man or zone. If you do that, you're leaving money on the table. You're wasting time. Race and space is offensive principles. You might just tweak your approach or your attack based on what type of defense you're going against. So we have another layer, layer 6, where we talk about the zone actions that tend to work best against different type of zones. Again, the concepts that it's building upon are the magic. The zone actions are not the magic. Layer 7, it is our shooting system. The best offense is making shots. That's it. If you have a really good shooting team, what you run is going to look really good. If you got a bad shooting team, it doesn't matter what you run. And so we have an entire layer in our offense practice for how to improve shooting through our tune, train, test method, and jacking up the amount of time we spend in practice to actually shoot shots, because that, when done right, will translate into making shots in games. That's layer 7. Layer 8 is the foul game. If you're not winning the foul game, you're probably not winning big games. And very few teams focus on winning the foul game and actually train how to win the foul game. It is all built on our shot selection layers, our advantage layers, and our action layers, and our shooting layers beforehand. If we don't have the foundation, we can't build the second story. This is the foul game. How do you win it? How do you name it? And how do you train it? Layer 9 is our out of bounds. Our out of bounds is an extension of our transition. We shouldn't be doing two separate things. We shouldn't slow down, wait, and set it up when we go out of bounds, but try to play fast every other time. Race in space is a principled lifestyle. We race first, we race always. We don't race for a quick shot, we race for a good shot. Same thing, when we train and run too many out of bounds plays, we're just running the play for a shot, whether it's a good shot or not. We just want to create an advantage catch out of how quickly we set up and execute our transition break into our out of bounds. Full court, sideline, baseline. It's how we play all the time. And then we play out of advantages. Finally, layer 10, that's when we start to layer in the special situations, usually in the third or fourth quarter of your season, where we'll talk about special situations for time scoring game situations, going against junk defenses. If it's a really, really challenging press break, you know what the best press break is? Having better players. But if you don't have better players, like what might you want to do strategically to put your players in positions to be most successful? And here it is in general, and I'll summarize it this way. I really want you to go into the course. There's over 8 hours of film and content and teaching. And this is just an overview to see if you're down with it. The trick, the secret to being great on offense is not having better plays. The trick is having better players. And the race in space tries to eliminate complexity and wasted time so that you can carve out more time in your practices for player development. That's it. Develop better players, develop a better program. Race in Space is a player development, player-driven offense for the coach that has gotten over themselves and wants to teach and let them run as opposed to trying to joystick them around all the time. If that sounds like you, welcome to the Race in Space. I'm sure you'll enjoy it.